Hi everybody, I am back with another video for jewelry making. This is going to be so much fun. Not that they're not always fun, but this I'm really looking forward to because we are going to make chaos beads. Now I had heard of chaos beads, but never done it. And we're going to do something with a little twist. So here is a chaos bead. Just a lot of wire just wrapped in chaos around itself. And we're going to use it to make earrings. So what we're going to do is make these chaos beads, and then I'm also going to show you how to make these interchangeable ear wire holders so that you can change out your earrings anytime you want. Just pop on a new earring. So I'm going to show you how to do that. It looks sort of like a nest. It's very interesting. And the little twist that we're going to have is that I've not seen a lot of chaos beads, I'll be honest with you. I've seen them, but they're usually all wire. And then I saw one that had beads added to it. And I thought, well, that's different. So I'm going to show you how to do that. Then I'm going to show you something I think I made up, which is how to do a chaos bead over an existing bead. So if you look really closely, you can see there's a bead floating around in there. So I'm going to show you how to do that. And I'm going to show you how to do one with added beads. And this, it's really easy. You can do it without any added beads. You can just do it with the wire. And then I'm also going to show you how to do the interchangeable ear wire, beaded, interchangeable beaded. So it's got several components. So it's got a bead incorporated in it, and it's interchangeable because it's got a little hook where you can just hang your beads. So we've got a lot of ground to cover today. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. This is a lot of fun for me. So let's get started. Let's go ahead and switch it out so I can get to the camera that we need. Oh, and we're going to need our usual tools. Round nose pliers, flat nose or square nose pliers, and cutters. You can use flush cutters or your regular cutters. Either one of them works just fine. So let's get started because this is going to be a whole lot of stuff that we have to learn today. So what we need is some 20 gauge wire to start with our earrings. And we're also going to use that for our ear wires. So the first thing that we're going to do is our chaos beads. So what we need the amount of wire that you need depends on how big you want your chaos bead to be. So I used about a yard of wire to achieve this size bead. It's a pretty decent size for an earring. So I'm going to take a yard of wire. There. Now, usually when you do these chaos beads, you don't have to worry about size because, well, it depends. If you're using it for a pendant, then you're just going to make one, so you don't have to worry about what size it is. You just determine what size you want it to be, and that's that. But since I'm making an earring, a matching earring, I have to watch and keep an eye on it to make sure that it's going to come as close to matching as possible to the one I've already made. So let's get started. The other thing that you're going to need is some kind of a rod, a thin rod, so that when you make your bead, you have a little hole. You can see, well, I don't know if you can see it, but the size of the hole of my bead right here. is the size of this rod. And this is approximately 4 millimeters. That's big enough to kind of string over just about anything. And yet, unless you're using a really large leather cord, and most like leather cord is about, can come in 4 millimeters, 3 millimeters, etc. So I'm using a 4 millimeter rod. You can use a larger rod if you want something with a large hole. But that's what I'm using today. You can use I wouldn't use a chopstick. I wouldn't use something wooden because you're wrapping wire around it and it's liable to indent, put dents in it, in which case the initial tube that you're making will not be consistent. I would use something metal or plastic, hard plastic. But the first thing that we're going to do is make a coil. So the coil that I started with for my earring was about 1/2 inch long. And the length of that coil will determine the size of your bead. So I'm going to go with 1/2 inch because that's what I did for my first earring. So what you do is you just put your wire on rested against the, I was doing it while I was talking, so and not describing. You want to rest your wire against the rod. Give yourself about 1/2 inch of excess that you can use to hold on to while you're wrapping the wire around the rod. So you can see I'm just making let me see if I can get a good visual there. Just wrapping it around, just turning the rod as I make a coil. Or you can wrap it around this way. But with this long piece of wire, it's easier to just turn the rod. They also have these, well, it's actually called a gizmo, I think, where you have a little handle and you can just rotate it instead of turning it yourself, which might be easier, especially if you have really, really strong wire. I'm using 20 gauge dead soft, so it's very easy to manipulate. Now, don't be fooled by the dead soft name, because this work hardens pretty quickly. It will, I call it solidifying, which is really not accurate, but it just makes it more, it just gets stronger and doesn't manipulate after a while. Oops, I think I crossed my wires over. Make sure my wires are close together but not on top of each other. And then even occasionally I can take my pliers, squeeze the wires together, the loops together, until I have my 1/2 inch. So what I need to do is measure this in a minute or a couple of seconds and see how far along I am, or how close to it I am to getting my 1/2 inch. And you can see this started to wrap around too. So I've lost my initial little tail, which is fine because now I have my coil to hold on to. Just don't poke yourself in the finger with that tail that's sticking up. Okay, let's see how much I have so far. Let's put it together. Ruler here. And let's see, shall we? Okay, I have just about a coil away, a loop away from 1/2 inch. Let's give it another loop. Let's see what we have. I think that's good. Let me squeeze it together and measure again. Yes, that's 1/2 inch. About the same size as my earring. Yes. So now I can start on my wrapping. So I need to clip off this edge here. I like to give it a little bit of a curve. I like to curve it down so that it's already starting to rest in the direction of my rod, so that when I squeeze it down, it's a little easier than trying to press down a straight length of wire, which is kind of hard to do. So I've got this little tail that I need to cut off. I don't want it flying across the room, so I'm going to put it down here in my little bead container and just let it drop off there. Okay, so now I have this little tip that I need to get rid of, or just push down. I don't want to get rid of it. Let's push it down so that it rests beside the other coils, as close as I can get to the rod. Here we go. Let's neaten that up a little bit. Doesn't have to be too neat because this is going to be utter chaos. All right, so now I'm going to start making loops on my coils. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm just going to hold it with my thumb so that this doesn't lift up and start to unravel. And I'm going to make a loop. So there I've got my first loop. And then I'm going to wrap it around and then make another loop. And wrap. This time I'm going to go all the way to the other side and make a loop. Oh, and by the way, when you make your coils, you want it tight enough so that it's the size that you want, but not so tight that you can't slide it back off your rod when you're finished. So just remember that. It's sliding, and that's why I wanted to mention that. That's a good thing. You want to be able to get it off of your rod. So I'm just going to continue to loop and wrap and loop. Well, I hold it with my thumb. I just push it down with my thumb. And wrap some more. I'm going to go to the other side and make a loop. And it doesn't have to be particularly directional. You can do it in both directions, one direction. It's entirely up to you, because as I'm going to say again, it's supposed to be utter chaos, and that's what we're creating. So once I have enough loops so that I have done a really good job of covering up my coil, I'm going to start adding beads, but I can add some more loops here. It's already starting to work harden, which is a good thing, because once you get this done, this thing's as hard as a rock. I can't even squeeze it. It's so hard, which is great, because it's supposed to be the consistency of a bead. Okay, and just keep wrapping, wrapping, and wrapping. So I start to see spots where I can see my coil. I'll just add my loops there. Then I can start actually directing my loops in a particular place. See a loop right down there where I can see my coil. Okay, so now that I think I have enough loops to cover my coil, I'm going to start adding some beads. Tighten it up a little bit. So I've got some nice little crystals here. I have 4 crystals in this one, just kind of embedded within the wrap. And so I'm going to do the same thing with this one. So I just put on a feed on a bead, let it slide down. So my wire's bent, so let's straighten it out so I can get my bead on. Be careful, these are delicate little crystals. Don't want to hurt them. There we go. Slide that down. And it just fits right in that little opening there. Awesome. And then I want to wrap around the crystal just to make sure that it stays put where I placed it. And then I'm going to wrap around the bead. The wire bead, I mean. Now I'm going to drop another bead on there. Another little crystal. There we go. Ooh, just settled right there in that lovely little spot. Let's wrap it up. Wrap again. Wrap here. Let's add another crystal over here. Ooh, I see a nice spot that a crystal can go that I think would be very pretty. Just find some little indentations in the wire or in the design here. So that dropped right down in that little spot. Nice. Get down in there. Let's just wrap around the bead, around the crystal, and around the bead. Let's find one more spot. Here's a spot right here. Oh, look at that. They're all lined up. I didn't intend for that to happen, but that's fine. They don't need to be lined up. These are more random. Okay, let's get that down in there. Yeah, cute. Wrap it up. Come on there, wrap around the crystal there. And let's wrap around the whole bead. It's starting to get really, really, really big, which is nice. Okay, so let's do that. And so I'm coming to the end of my wire. Starting to wish it was a little bit bigger because I think this one's a little bit, no, they're about the same. Okay, so I'm coming to the end of my wire, which is nice. So what I'm going to do is finish it off. And the way I'm going to finish it, push that down. It's starting to work hard, and so pull that tight. There we go. So the way I'm going to finish this up is to just secure it a little bit more, is to take my wire and just kind of feed it through some of the other wires here. So I'm going to take the tail and feed it under and through, kind of weave it through one of my wires. Get down there, my goodness. It's really work hardening. Let's wrap. Okay. So here's a spot right here. And I'm just going to feed this wire through. Pull that through there. There we go. And now I'm going to take it and feed it through the other side here. I'm just finding a little opening to push the wire through. And there's my little tip. See if I can get it. Grab it with the pliers. Pull it through. So there's the tip of my wire. You can see that. And now I'm going to turn it in a loop, wrap it, and then push it down, push this little tail down into the cacophony of wire that I have wrapped here. I'm just going to push that tail down so that it's not poking up. Just wrap it around the wire and then push it down in. So there we have it. There's my bead. Kind of play with it a little bit. If you want to flatten them out a little bit more, you can. You can use your pliers to push them together a little bit. Be careful with your crystals, or if you have any kind of a delicate bead, you don't want to damage it, of course. But there is my bead. Yay. Slide it off. And you should be able to see the hole on one side and the hole on the other side. And I'm going to be sliding my wire through. And it just goes right through from one end to the other. And so now I'm going to make an eye pin. You can't even see it, but there is an eye pin through there. It just kind of fits the design and it's barely visible. So I've taken my a piece of 20 gauge wire, and I like to go ahead and before I cut it, I just had this already cut. It's left over from something else. I like to slide my wire through in order to make my loop. And you don't have to wrap this. You can wrap it if you want. You can make it a wrapped loop if you want. I'm just going to make a simple loop. And you want the loop to be big enough to butt up against the hole that's in your bead, but not go through it, of course. So I'm going to go down here almost to the back of my pliers because I think that will work good enough. I'm going to give myself a nice loop. Let's see, that's too big. That kind of fits in with the design, so that's good. A nice loop there. Center it a little bit, put the tip of my pliers in and center it so that the loop looks more like it's more on top of the wire instead of off to the side. And there's one side of my eye pin, and look at that, it just kind of disappears. You can't even hardly see it. It's kind of awesome. See if you can see that. Yeah, there we go. So you can kind of see the eye pin if you're really looking, but if you're not, it looks like part of the design. So that's amazing. So let's go to the other side and make my other loop. And I only need about 1/2 inch, so I can cut it off now. About 1/2 inch of wire should make my loop just fine. Make my other loop. Again, let's center it, pull it back so that it's in the center of my wire. And there we have it. There's my earring, my other earring. Ta-da! Awesome. I have a matching pair. Okay, so now I'm going to show you how to make this one. And what I did with this particular one looks very similar to the other one, but what I did differently about with that one is I put it over. What the heck is going on now? Oh. Sorry about that. I heard a big crash and I thought, oh no, somebody hit my car, but they didn't. The beauty of on camera. Anyway, Mr. UPS man was driving a little fast. But anyway, what I did was put this, wrap this around this already existing bead. And that's what I get. So you can see a little bit of the bead underneath. You just get a little pop of color under there. And you have chaos around your bead. Fun. Okay, so we're going to do that. Of course, it comes out a little bit bigger because you have something to base it on. So in addition to your rod, you have a bead to work with. So again, about a foot, or I'm sorry, about a yard of wire. Same amount of wire, bigger bead. Why? Because you have a starting base. Okay, you're putting it over something. So I'm going to give myself a yard of wire. Get this wrapped. Okay. 1, 2, 3. Okay. Okay, I've got my wire, and I'm going to start the way I started the other one. Just place my wire on top of the rod, give myself about 1 inch of wire to hold on to, just a little inch tail, 1 inch tail for a little leverage, and start twisting. Twist my wire so that it's nice and close to my rod. And what I'm going to do is just give myself 4 loops. Squeeze my loops together so that they're nice and close to each other, forming a nice coil. So I've got 4 loops, and I'm going to slide my bead on the wire. With this long, expansive wire, it's kind of hard to show it all on camera. Okay, so there's my bead, working it down over my wire. And when you buy these beads, when you get your beads, you want to make sure that the hole is big enough for whatever wire you're using. This is 20 gauge, so it's pretty standard, and most holes will, it will accommodate most the holes of most beads. So now I have my bead on. Here's my coil. There's my bead. Now I'm going to coil it on the other side. Just kind of hold it down so that it's nice and close to my rod. And then wrap. And it doesn't have to be straight. You don't have to worry about that. This is going to be all wrapped up in my Chaos wire. And when you're wrapping this, you want to make sure that the coils are beside each other but not on top of each other, so that you have a nice coil. So there's my base. There we go. We have 4 wraps on each side of the bead, and that's where we start. Yeah. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is get rid of this tail, because it's going to keep poking me if I don't. So I like to give myself a little bit of a curve like usual, and then lift it up. Just keep that curve in there, because again, it's easier to push down on something that's already partially wrapped than to push down a piece of straight wire. So I'm going to clip that as closely as I can get. Again, I'm going to bring forward my little container so I have somewhere for that little tip of wire to go, instead of in my face, awful, in my carpet, just as bad, or hitting anybody across the room, which can be very damaging. We don't want that. Okay, so now I'm going to push down that little tail so that it's as close to the rod as I can get and not sticking up where it's going to attack my clothes or my skin. There, nice and neat. Okay, so now we start the wrapping process. And what I want to do is start it as close to the bead as I can. So I'm going to cross over my wire until I get near the bead. So there's the wire is crossed over from the far end back toward the bead. And then you don't have to do this. This is my process. I like to wrap around the bead just so I have an anchor. So I'm going to wrap all around the base of the bead, just one full circle. And now I'm going to start my wrapping. So or my looping. So I'm going to make a loop on top. Then I'm going to wrap around the rod. I'm going to make a loop someplace else, this time on the side. And then wrap around again. I'm going to make a loop on the back side. Give it another wrap and another loop. It's really neat to do it around the bead because you have something to hold on to. It makes it very pleasant. Wrap and loop. And wrap again, another loop. And just keep on doing this until you have your bead. And I like to hold it down with my thumb just to have some control over how popped up my wires are. Just give it another loop, wrap. I have a space that I see there, my bead showing. Let's put a loop there. Basically, I'm just covering my bead with loopity-looped wires. Loop. wrap, and loop. And wrap. And just keep on going until you have your bead. I am coming to the end of my wire. So there's the tip of my wire. This one's not quite as big as this one, but that's okay because I can use them for pendants instead of earrings. The other thing you can do is add more wire. I could take this little piece of wire right here and just wrap it around and continue. We want to do that now. Now I'm going to finish this off. So now I have my little, about a 3/4 of an inch tail. I'm going to complete this by weaving this in between some of the wires. Just going to thread it through a wire here underneath, pull it out the other side. Gotta grab it first and loop it around. Just loop that tail and direct the end down in the other wires and just push it down so it has somewhere to go. Now I'm gonna just push my wraps a little bit the way I want them to go. It's easier for me to do this while it's on the rod, but you can do both. And let's slide it off the wire or off my rod. And there we have it. There's my bead. There's the hole in the one end and the hole in the other end. And let's let me take a look here. They're close enough. I think they're close enough that I can wear them for earrings. Yay. So let's make an eye pin for it. Take my pliers, make my loop, and again I'm going to center my loop because see, it doesn't really matter, but I like my loops centered instead of leaning over to one side. So I just put the tip of my pliers down there at the base where the opening is, and I just crimp it back so that now the looped part is on both sides of the wire. And if it opens up a little bit, then just go back in and close it. There we go. Nice centered loop. So let's feed that wire through one end to the other. Oh, and again, you do not have to feed the wire through to through the bead that's inside. That would be a neat trick, but it's not necessary because you've created a bead on top of a bead. So all you have to do is feed it through one end of your wire bead to the other. And there we have it. And so let's go ahead and make our loop on the other side. Again, I need about 1/2 inch. I just eyeball it. 1/2 inch of wire will do. Snip that off. Make my loop. Oh, it fell out. Get back up in there. There we go. Make my loop. Center it a little bit. Make sure it's nicely closed. And there we go. Neato torpedo. Here's my bead. Okay, so now that I've got 2 matching pairs, I usually end up with extra beads. Now I have earrings, yay! So now that we have our beads made, I'm going to show you how to make these nice, nifty ear wires. All right, so what you're going to need is about this extra piece of wire is coming in really handy. Sorry about the sirens outside. So what you're going to need is about 5 inches of wire. 5 inches. Okay. Just cut this off. And you know what? I have one that kind of matches this one. So I think I will do that. Okay. Let me go find the bead. Find the bead here. My place is in a bit of a disarray because I have new flooring coming in next week, which means I have to move everything out of the way, except for the furniture. They moved the furniture, but I need to make sure everything's off the furniture. Yes, you are looking at an incredible amount of crystal beads. So let me find one that kind of matches the bead that I have inside. It's a nice teal color that I've got in that one, so I will duplicate that if I can find it. I'm so unprepared. There we go. How do you like that? Thousands of crystals. I actually in the right bead. Okay, so I've got my 5 inches of wire. And the first thing that I'm going to do is make my shepherd's hook because it gives me something to hold on to. So I'm going to make a little tiny shepherd's hook on one end. And the way I'm going to do that is to take my pliers and grab the tip of my wire and make a tiny 3/4 loop. I say 3/4 because you don't want to close it up all the way. So I just make a tiny loop. That's about halfway. There we go, about 3/4. And if you can see that, it's still slightly open. And the reason for that is because I'm going to take my pliers and I'm going to go to the bottom, which is where the opening is, to the top, the very top of the wire, and I'm going to squeeze. I just want to squeeze that down into a little tiny loop, so small that you couldn't have made it with the smallest pliers. I want that to be as tiny as possible so that I have an easy time sliding any bead I want over it. And then I'm going to go down about 3/4 of the way down my pliers, and I'm going to make a little loop. So the bottom of my loop, which is this part where the opening is resting on one of the jaws of my pliers, and the other jaw is clamping the top. And now I'm going to take the long end of my wire, I'm going to take it over the top of my pliers until it touches down on the top of my loop. And now I have a shepherd's hook. Next thing I'm going to do is slide on my bead. Now, in order to make this one's a little longer, which is interesting. I don't know why I made it like that, but it's fine. It works. It's an ear wire. It works, it works. It's not as big. That's why, because I used my pliers to make this one instead of a pencil, which is what I used to make this one. I used a pen. So you can see it's a little bigger, a little rounder. In fact, I think I'm going to reshape this one because I like the slightly bigger one. So now it looks more like a traditional ear wire. So what I need is approximately 1.5 inches in order to affect the same type of, this exact same ear wire. It's easier if you do them both at the same time, but I didn't because I needed to be able to show you how to do it. So I don't have that advantage. So I'm going to get about 1.5 inches of wire left on the end. And I'm going to slide my bead down so it's halfway between where my finger is and the tip of the loop is. I'm going to hold my bead in place and I'm going to wrap the shepherd's hook end around in a full circle around the bead. Full circle. Then I'm going to take the other end and I'm going to wrap it around the other direction, around the bead, all the way around, full circle, until it ends up on the opposite side of the shepherd's hook again. Then I'm going to wrap the shepherd's hook again, and I'm just going to keep doing that. Wrap the shepherd's hook and the other end until I get it where I want it. So there's going to be the bottom. Check and make sure I still have 1 inch. I have a little more than 1.5 inches, so I'm going to wrap it a little more. Just keep wrapping. And there I have it. I have about 1.5 inches. So now I'm going to make the ear part. So I'm bending it back so that it's almost at a 90-degree angle. There's my hook. There's my expansive wire. Now I'm going to take my pin and I'm going to place it right down here at the base of my bead, where my bead is wrapped, on the opposite side. So this is the side that it's wrapped under, and this is the top of the wire. And I'm going to shape my earpiece. So there is my ear wire. Just kind of shape it the way I want it to look. And then, of course, it needs to be turned so that the ear part is back, and this is the part that's going to show. So this needs to be turned back. So I'm just going to take the wire, grab the bead, and grab the ear part, and just twist until it's directed to the back, like so. And then I'm going to take my pliers and I'm going to give this tip a little tweak. Just a little bend, like so. There we go. There's my ear wire. Now this one is a little longer. So I want to fix that. I don't want it a little longer. Oh, and also, there's two ways you can do this. I like my hook to show because it looks like part of the design. So I did it two ways. I did it one way with the hook showing, and I did it this way with the hook to the back, which is fine, but then you lose some of the decorative element, which I like. I like the decorative element, so I'm going to turn that because I want it to be showing. Kind of mangled it a little bit, but I can fix that later. But now I have that showing. So now there's my wire. There's my hook. This one is a little longer, so I can do one of two things. I can wrap it again, or I can just cut it off. And that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to cut it off. So that it matches this one. Actually, it's not too bad. Yeah, they're about the same. I am wrong. They do match. Okay. Yeah, nice. Okay, so anyway, that, I get a little caught up, I'm sorry. That is how you make interchangeable ear wires. So now I can just pop my bead on there. And down here at the bottom, where I have my the other end of my hook, you can dangle something from that if you want to, or you can just leave it the way it is. So there are my earrings. And there's my first pair of earrings that we did with the little crystals wrapped around it. Here they are. And that ends our program. So what I want to show you is how they look on. So see, ta-da! Now, when you make your ear wires, oh, I like these. So when you make your ear wires, your own ear wires, you want to you can take an emery board or a file and just round these ends out so that they are not sharp, because you don't want to put sharp wire in your ear. And I use 20 gauge. 20 gauge is usually the acceptable wire size for ear wires. You don't want it to be too thin because you don't want to slice through your ear, ew. And you don't want it to be too big. 20 gauge works. And I think that's pretty much the size of earring wires that you purchase in the store. But just make sure that you file this down a little bit, just kind of round the edges so that they're not pointy and sharp when you're trying to poke them in your ear. Okay, so anyway, that's our program. There are my earrings and my really cool, I think, decorated ear wires. Nice close-up of that. And again, you can dangle something from the bottom of this if you want to, but I think it kind of looks like part of the design, so it doesn't matter. And that is our program for today. I hope you liked it. I get a lot of requests for earrings, and I had started to do these beads into a necklace. I'm going to show you. You can make bigger beads and do something like that, like I did. I thought that was kind of awesome. That was actually originally going to be what I showed you today, but I wanted to show you something different. But you can do the same thing. You can do the same type of thing with a shepherd's hook S clasp or S hook. That's what I did here. That's this. And it's the same way we did the ear wires, except just do 2 shepherd hooks on either side to create your, I'm trying to get it where you can see, where you can see both ends. Let's see here, there we go. And that's what I used down here to clasp the stick to attach it to the chain. And then at the bottom is the one with the little beads weaved in there. And then I dangled a piece of polymer clay bead to the bottom. That's it. It's the neatest thing. You can make your own beads. Awesome. So what's a little chaos? I love it. So anyway, that's our program for today. I hope you enjoyed it. Please let me know one way or the other. Somebody said, ooh, I showed it to my sister. She said, isn't that going to be too hard for people to do? See how easy it was? You're just wrapping. Wrap, 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 wrap. No design, no particular anything in sight. They're all gonna come out different. They're all gonna come out gorgeous. I hope you do it. I hope you love it. You can do it with or without beads. You can just take wire. Just take your wire and wrap it. So you don't have to have anything special or specific. Anyway, have fun with this. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know whether or not you did. And also let me know if you have any suggestions for things that you would like to see in the future. And please, 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 pictures of what you make always make me very happy. So you will see me again next week, and enjoy your week. See you later. Bye-bye.